The Shenandoah Hornets football team currently sitting at 6-2 with 2 games left in the regular season schedule versus Hampden-Sydney and on the road at Washington and Lee. Now, joining me to talk some Shenandoah football over the past couple of weeks is head football coach Scott Yoder. Coach, always appreciate your time. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to see you. I can't believe it's November already, but I'm glad we could catch up.
The time usually flies. It's like you're at the first game of the season, and here we are towards the tail end. It seems like the football season always seems to fly by just like a snap of a finger.
Yeah, it really does. You gear up for the summertime and August comes around and everybody's excited and you kind of just keep your head down and go to work and get ready for the next opponent, and you look up and it's Halloween and now it's, thinking about Thanksgiving, and I can't believe we only have 2 regular season weeks left. So just trying to maximize our time with our team and play some good football.
Absolutely. So the last time we spoke, we previewed the game coming out against Methodist 33-14. And yeah, I know this is a while back, but just briefly, if you don't mind, Coach, you get the win at at home against Rhodes College. You had that week 2 bye. I know you were stressing about the week 2 bye and how it didn't go Shenandoah's way last year, but just looking overall at that week 2 bye, I know it's a long time ago, but how impressed were you at your team to get the victory after another week 2 bye this season?
I think our kids, our team really responded. And it's funny you mentioned that. That feels like eons ago. But remember that was the night game with the weather and the delay, and so we had to wait even longer to play. And I'm glad that we could get that game in. And there was a lot of administrative stuff behind the scenes with Deshaun Fox, our AD, and certainly Rhodes, making that trip and then being flexible. And I really appreciate everything that went on behind the scenes here at the university to get that game in, because obviously we both wanted to play. And I thought our players handled that really, really well. The week 2 bye, getting ready for a quality opponent that we didn't have a lot of data on, and then going into Saturday knowing there was some possible weather in the area. And I think we ended up having an hour and a half or a little bit more of that delay. And then our guys coming out and we played well. We started slow in that game, had some issues offensively, but then kind of settled down and played really well, and that was a good win for us. Then you turn around and you go to Juniata and play well there, and then take that into the league. Everybody else had a bye, and we were playing. And I thought that played into us playing really well against Randolph-Macon, and obviously, 1 point, and that's frustrating to look at when it's in November, but we played really well in that game at times and against a quality opponent who's looking like right now they're going to win the ODAC again. So I really like where we're at right now, and maybe that's not where you were going with the question, but that's where I took us. So apologize.
No, no, not a problem. It's just all about having fun talking football with head coach Scott Yoder, the Shenandoah Hornets. And I did want to mention the 2 ODAC games, very tough losses by 1 point, ironically, both 22-21 losses against Randolph-Macon and Bridgewater. But with that, falling to Randolph-Macon by a point, 22-21, come out with a solid win against Ferrum the next week, falling to Bridgewater and coming out with a solid win against Guilford. What does that say about your team in those moments where they fell by just a little bit and coming back, getting sort of that rebound win the next week after that? What can you say about your team and getting those victories the next week after tough losses?
Well, I would even take a more macro look at the whole thing, and that is that every time our group has been challenged or faced some adversity, whether that was an on the field adversity, whether that was, off season stuff or anything that we challenged our guys have responded in a really, really positive way. And sometimes that's not always the prettiest thing. When you come up a little bit short and you got to look in the mirror, that's not always a comfortable or a really great situation for a group or individuals. But there's always that opportunity to grow as a team and as an organization. And, we've always been proud of our guys, and it's no different this year. They've responded to every challenge. They've rebounded in game, after a game. We play well, we play poorly. They've answered the bell. And I expect them to do that these next 2 weeks, both in game and after, post game too. So I think that's really important. And, we certainly could sit here and woulda, coulda, shoulda, and hey, 2 points and this and that. But all those things have kind of formed us to be who we are, good and bad. And I think we're a pretty good football team. And now we've got, 2 more weeks to go out and show that and, prove that and, prove it to ourselves consistently. And, we're going to play two good teams. And I think we're a good football team. So that's exciting. I told the guys this week, there's a heck of a lot of football teams in the country right now, especially at the Division III level, who aren't playing for very much besides maybe pride, maybe a rivalry game, something like that. And our guys have a chance to go out and play a Hampden-Sydney team and, be in the mix for a possible postseason bowl game. And what we do matters. And we played ourselves into that position. So, hopefully that message is resonating with our young players.
So defensively over this past stretch, it seems like the defense is doing some great things. Obviously, I heard about defensive coordinator Calvin not being on the sideline. I'm not going to get into that, but with whatever that situation might have been, how good of a feeling is it you knowing that you have a defensive staff that can step up and help along in whatever situation it might have been, in a sense, if you get what I'm saying?
Well, I think our defense has played really, really well throughout the year. And I think the best thing that we're doing overall, it's going to seem really simple, but it certainly isn't, especially this time of year, this is probably the best I've seen us tackle from start to finish. And by no means does that mean that we've been perfect, but that's a lot of things. That's actually tackling and getting guys to the ground. That's pursuit. That's being in the right spots. That's knowing your alignment and assignment. And that's also caring a lot about your teammates. And hey, when I run to the football, I can't just assume that, hey, Jimmy's going to make the play. I got to get there too. And then if a tackle is broken, we've got guys there to clean up the proverbial mess. So that's what we're doing at a really high level. And I think these last 2 weeks, I think we played really complementary football. We played a team that the quarterback was a pretty good scrambler against Guilford. We'll see that this week with Sydney. But I thought our rush plan, our run plan, our pass rush plan, and then our secondary contain elements really worked well together. And he got some yards and he got some plays. But that game, it never felt like he was just destroying us and making a big play when we thought we had him stopped. And I think that has a lot to do with the plan and the execution of the plan. Overall, staff-wise, I couldn't be happier. The season is always ups and downs. That's a part of the fun and the mystery of it, no matter what level or what team you follow. That's, there's injuries, there's weather, there's setbacks, you play well, you play poorly. That's the human nature of this. But I think our staff has done a great job in all phases, because it can't just be one person or one idea, getting you through those tough times, and getting you through those setbacks and making sure our kids are developing and getting better. So we're better than we were a month ago. And that goes for offense, defense, and special teams. I'd also like to just, shout out to some guys. We got a lot of guys on staff that played here. And I don't know that there's a better compliment for a school and a football program to have guys that experienced it want to come back and serve and coach and give back to their program. And that that speaks volumes about those guys, but it also just reinforces to our current players, hey, this is not, this is not a part-time deal. This is not, hey, we like to play football and it's over. This is young people and young professionals who are invested in the university, in our culture. And I don't think you can put a price tag on that.
Absolutely. So, shifting over to the offensive side of football, this has seemed to be sort of a trend, but from what I have been gauging, but I'll ask you this. I mean, obviously, it looks like Shenandoah has a ton of playmakers. One in particular, Broden Domenico. You have Logan Bigby in the mix, but it seems like receiving Stephen Hugney, who's been with the Shenandoah Hornets football program for quite some time, is spreading the football out to numerous different receivers and just not one guy, and rushing as well, sort of the same trend. Just take me through what you have liked offensively and some of your playmakers that have been able to get stuff done for the Hornets.
Well, when we're operating at a high level on offense, a lot of different people are going to touch the ball. And that's one of the exciting things about being involved in this offense is that you don't really know who's going to have the big day, and it, one day it's Guy Hayes and then the next day it's Broden and then Jalen has a big game running. And we guys just make plays. Michael Scheel has scoring touchdowns. There's so many different guys. We got a great group of young receivers. And that's what really makes the offense go and makes it fun is that you can't take away everything. And really, Steven's back there and he's playing point guard. Obviously it's much more complicated than that because he's running it and throwing it and operating everything, but he's just distributing the ball. And Broden's obviously, I think, the best receiver in the league. I think that for a lot of reasons, but he's tough to cover. He's really savvy. He's good with the football. He's good running routes, the whole deal. And obviously he's getting a lot of touches, but when teams try to bracket him or double team or, take him away, whatever they want to say, the offense is built to just get the ball to the open guy and make the defense wrong. And if we play that way with that mentality and just make a lot of good decisions, then we're gonna do well. We're gonna do well. And so I think Stevens played well. I think the O-line has done really well. They're asked to do a lot run game and pass blocking wise. But I think the biggest jump for us has been just the amount of production we're getting from our tailbacks. That tailback room took a giant step forward from last year to this year. Health had a lot to do with that. We were pretty banged up in that room last year, but we've got, two guys right now who are averaging 5-6 yards a carry, and we're throwing the football and hurting people through the air. So when we're playing well, that's kind of the formula for us to put some points on the board and help our defense out.
So as you look at this stretch going into the last two games, I know you like to take it one game at a time. Most football clubs do, but just overall, what is the message to your team going into two more games in the regular season with your offense and defense performing at a high level, just going into the tail end of this season?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One that we already touched on, which was, there's a lot of teams playing right now that not that they're mailing it in, but there's not a lot on the line. And for us, I don't feel that way at all. First of all, we've got a lot to prove, just to continue to play well and beat some teams that are also good football teams. I think that's important. But just showing our guys, look at all the things that you've been through. You've persevered through those. You put yourself in this position. This is a big football game because you've played well, and enjoy that. Enjoy that moment at home. Yes, it's senior day. There's a lot of emotions that go on with that because you got a great group of guys that are playing their last day at Chantel. But let's focus on the task at hand because, a year from now or 5 years from now, when you think about senior day, you want to think about how you performed really well and you helped your team and, hopefully to victory. But those are the good feelings that'll come from that. So that's really the message. But our group does not feel like, hey, it's just these last two games. It's let's keep building on what we've got going here. And, if we earn the chance to play an extra week, that would be fantastic. And that's what we want for our seniors.
Obviously, looking at that extra week, I believe it's a bowl game. To my knowledge, if you could help me fill in the blanks there, but what is it like to sort of get an opportunity to try and compete to play in a bowl game at the Division III level? Because I know there aren't really that many opportunities, but I know, again, not trying to look ahead, but just in general, what is that like trying to play for something like that?
Well, what ended up happening was an opportunity to pair with the Landmark Conference, which the agreement basically says that your number 2 and number 3 team that don't make the NCAA playoffs would be paired against each other in a neutral site, quote unquote bowl game. I'm always going to be for more opportunities for our guys to compete, regardless of what anybody's metric says. We only get 10 games, and we've got 300 plus Division III football programs, and only 40 make the NCAAs. And when you look at, comparatively speaking, across sports and opportunities beyond the regular season, football is by far the least represented as far as percentage of participating institutions that gets to do that. So anytime that we can do something in the postseason, as long as it's done well, then I want to be a part of that, and I want to push that, not just for our student athletes, but any ODAC team that might not make the postseason. If you have a good season and you're 2 or 3, I think we should take advantage of that for our student athletes. I was a part of at least one, maybe 2 bowl games when I was at Hobart, and there's a really unique aspect to it. You make the NCAA playoffs, that's the pinnacle. That's what you want to do. You won your conference, or you were good enough to get in that large. But the reality of that situation is your season will end in a loss. Okay, that's the reality, except for one team that wins the national championship. There is a ton, there is a ton to be said for your momentum of your season and winning a bowl game, carrying that into the offseason. And hopefully we get a chance to do that. Who knows how it plays out? Obviously our AQ isn't even decided yet. Macon kind of has the inside track, but there's 2 weeks left, so a lot can happen. But opportunities for our student athletes, 1, and then 2, selfishly for our program. Let's go experience this if we earn it, and use that as a springboard for our whole program into the off season, because it's not just about 10 games. It's about this 365 days a year, trying to make our program better and be the best that we can be to help our young people.
Absolutely. Once again, Shenandoah Hornets, they're currently 6-2. 2 games left this Saturday at Shentel versus Hampden-Sydney. And then after that, Washington and Lee on the road, both in the ODAC. Always appreciate your time talking SU Hornets football with the head coach of the Shenandoah Hornets, Scott Yoder. Coach, always a pleasure catching up with you.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate what you do for, athletics, but certainly Division III athletics in the area. And go Hornets.